Dim 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 dim. Stand up. Yeah, ligament. Not too important. Right, 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 right. Alright then, let's see, what do I got? Should be working, didn't it? Doesn't matter, doesn't matter, doesn't matter, doesn't matter, irrelevant. Irrelevant, irrelevant, irrelevant. Here we go. That's what I need. Explaining the elbow. Where's not really, I think, well, there are some players, but how do you even play like this? Thank God for evolution making monitors smaller. Alright, let's see. Let's see what I need. It's mostly for carpal tunnel, because obviously. Right. What do I do for 10 minutes? I don't mess around, I guess. I think everything's working. It's visible, I think. Yes, cool. Better color. No, not that one. Better. Alright, that works. Okay. Ref has a really weird playstyle. Right, 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 right. Bam, bam. Ba, ba, ba. Anything I'm missing? I don't think so. Da, da, da. I could go into carpal tunnel, but is that really that common? Carpal tunnel syndrome. FPS. Wait, arthritis? Damn. Who would have thought? Huh. I don't think this is that credible, but kind of depends on the way you're playing the game. Because if it's like what this guy is doing, it's not that bad. It's also about hand positioning, obviously, but. Da, da, da. Yeah. Irrelevant. Sounds like a shitty ass study. I'm not gonna use that. What about hand issues? Gamer's thump. I mean, that's for console peasants. Let's be real here. Da, da, da. Gamer's thump. Sounds irrelevant as hell. Gamer's Thump. Is there anything incredible here? Let's do it this way. Also called the Queer of Instances, okay. I've never actually seen anyone with this particular condition, at least not in the esports scene. Something that comes over time, maybe. So it isn't really affected by FPS gamers, actually, if it's a dorsal tumble. Subcut. I mean, the dorsal extended has nothing to do with... I mean, if you think about the movement that you're making when you're gaming, it's mostly relaxed. Now, this is not really a good example, but... This is old time, really. Like, it's like 2000s to 2010. It's more modern. Laptops, obviously. This is actually really bad for your sitting position if you're sitting like this. Oh well. You know, lockdown and stuff. I'll be starting my lesson in 5 minutes. Just waiting for people to arrive. You can join if you want. I've already got everything ready and I'm just checking to make sure everything is done and I'm not missing anything. Like, hello to you too, Mayo. Nah, it's not really disease. This is more commonly known as gamer thumb, and I was just reading up on whether or not this is something that can be related to FPS gamers, but the way FPS gamers use their mouse and usually their sitting position, this is not really affiliated with that. Like, the study is relatively old, like 2013. It's not that big of a deal. At least, have you ever heard of anyone like having worst problems or anything, like say on something severe in this community? Because I have not. Like the best example I have is Shelter,
Yeah,
who has a... I don't know if it's right now, but like back when I was still coaching him, he had like a horrible setup, something like akin to not even this guy. This guy still wasn't normal. Like more like what is a really bad setup? Something like this. This is something like he had, and then with a fucking normal monitor, not like it's 2002.
One CRT, please.
Nah. Anyway. Like I'm using Ref for example because of the way he uses his mouse.
Wait,
like,
can you play this game with only... Is his keyboard under his desk?
he's keeping... this is very common in certain FPS games like Quake, where they keep the keyboard like under here so that they have full space for the mouse. And this is mostly done by people, like as you can see, this is his desk in a pro setting. Like he's a pro already, like he's already in a tournament. And he has this amount of space. This is not enough for his mouse movement, clearly. And he has a fucking mouse pad upon a mouse pad, which is also...
It looks like you're just trying to keep the mouse in the center of the screen area. Because you could have enough room if you just have like a...
Yeah.
Keyboard, like a 50% or something.
But this is kind of like an extreme, because if you look at his gameplay, like he's not even keeping his crosshair in the right position.
Oh no.
tennis elbow and stuff. It is still like something like tennis elbow or inflammation is still not directly caused by FPS gaming in general. Gut, like
Being stupid.
like a research like this, which is like it has a lot of citations, and if I were to actually double check, it's still also very old. Like this is the biggest cause, right? Like due to the fact that these research are very old, you're looking not at this type of setup. You're looking at people that were playing FPS games. Where is it? Like with those giant ass monitors, giant ass mouses, and everything. Like this is what you see normally. Like people have space now. Monitors have become smaller. Like it's the same with like this. Like you, yeah, this is not wrong if you look at it, but it's not right either. That's kind of the thing, right? Like it's not wrong, but not right either. This is more common. Like this is kind of like the ultimate setup. You have a very small keyboard. This is all you need, all the buttons you need, and then nice space for your mouse. Obviously, this does mean that you can't type and everything, but hello, Chiss.
You can still probably type GR.
You can still type S, the important one. Like the E is still there and the Z is still there. The most important buttons.
But can you type C9?
Ah, god damn it! There's no 9. Well, you could put it. He could put it in here. Like these are macro keys. Yeah. C9 lol.
C9, yeah.
Hello, auntie. Okay, it's 6, so I guess Zoom is not coming. I'm gonna ping Senny just because I like him, annoying him.
No, Senny is being him. We played him in OD, and yeah. Now he went.
Yeah, I looked a bit in the stream just to see if anything interesting in Overwatch, but not really. Okay, so today's topic, obviously I haven't really looked it up yet, but like clockwork and such, it's something that's going to come as we progress with the story, but it basically comes down to how we use our body, right? So black bar, I should use better color. So the human body, I'm just going to keep it quick because obviously this is way too difficult for normal people to understand if you're not interested. Basically, we have a shit ton of muscles in our arm, right? And if you look at the video I posted of like the strafing, how you strafe, you're mostly tensing this area, right? This is pretty much what I've taught everyone. Like when you're training, always make sure that around this area you have like some sort of tense going on so that the muscles are activated and you have some sort of practice going into the muscle memory of like the muscle tissue that is being used here because of how small these movements. Like these are very precise movements. It's just like what you see in like watchmakers. Like if you've ever seen a video of like a Rolex, for example, crafting a watch, the amount of detail and precision that goes into the tiniest of movements of like just the fingers alone can be insane. And this kind of applies to how we use our hands as well. Like for example, claw grip includes fingers, right? So that means you have like I'm a claw gripper, so my movement is very much like directed in a single circle. But there's people that use the entire mouse, which is smoother, and obviously then there's palm as well, which is palm grips is for mostly people that actually can afford to fucking send this. I can actually afford to use mouse pads and everything like that in the proper way. So muscle tissue, everything. Like I'm just gonna put it simple here. These are like, this is the elbow tissue. These are like the movements and the bones and everything that is in there. Important parts are supination and pronation. What that basically means is the way you turn your elbow. So for example, if you have like your arm like this, just turning them around is supination or pronation. That's all that matters. So yeah, that's all you have to know. It's important because of how the wrist is used, and that's why I wanted to look at this guy, because in his sitting position, right, like what you see is this is his elbow, and then This is the way he's seated. Now, normally, what you see, I'm pretty sure that you guys are doing this. If you're seated, your elbow is slightly in this direction, right? Like it's in a 90-degree posture around your waist, in a pretty decently comfortable position, right? At least I hope so. So this is already like, to put it simple, like if this was Overwatch, where you would need a lot of mouse movement to, like, for example, go into the other angle, as you can see, there's already a problem. His body is in the way. If that is not obvious, but because of the game he's playing, he doesn't require that amount of movement. So it's, in a general sense, it's fine. It kind of depends on the game you're playing. Like, for example, if this was Call of Duty, this will be a handicap, and if this was Battlefield, it will be a handicap. Basically, games where if you're the center of point and you would need to like work around a 360 degrees angle, this is not happening. Like, if he were to turn towards his left side, he will probably block around 60 degrees, right? So he would not make the 180 degrees in order to fully turn around. Not that big of a deal. Like, if it works, something like that. And that is pretty much what this entire thing is going to be about. If it works, it works. Which is kind of tricky to talk about, because we're currently in an era where, yeah, the monitors are being better, yeah, we have better desks, yeah, we have better chairs, but it all comes down to this. This is something that's like when I first went to university, is one of the first things that you learn. Human beings are not made to sit on chairs. We just aren't. And chairs are, like, it doesn't matter like how you sit or how you like look at these type of things, and they're like, yeah, you have to sit like this, or you have to stand, or you look at this. All of this is irrelevant, because what this comes down to is nobody's going to be like this for a solid 2 hours. Like, for example, an Overwatch League game, how long does it take? Like at least an hour, I would say, like depending on the team. Obviously, if it's like the best team against the worst team, it's a lot faster, but nobody's going to sit like this, right? And it comes down to the fact nobody has a proper chair, because the way technology is evolving right now, like the Netherlands, like together with Canada and Sweden, countries like that are like in the leading edge of when it comes to physiotherapy advancement in a medical situation. We're not even looking at chairs anymore. Like, yeah, you see this. This is pretty decent. But what it comes down to is, due to how we sit, it's very locked position. And the fact that it's a locked position makes it very unhealthy to be in, no matter what. Like, even if you're standing, do you think you can stand up like this for, like, let's say 2 hours? Can you do it? It's going to be extremely uncomfortable. And the moment you start feeling uncomfortable, that's when your aim starts becoming worse. That's when your sitting position becomes worse. That's when it doesn't really matter how you're in a position, everything's going to be worse. And this is not something we can apply to FPS gamers, but this is currently being used. Sounds funny. This children's edition, but something like this without the handle. This is like pretty much what is being used in the workplace right now in order to sit properly. And the reason for this is very simple. It's active movements, which means you are actively moving your muscle. Like if you're in this sitting position, it doesn't matter how or what, this ball is not meant to be in a single position because of the way gravity works and the way this thing's center of mass works. It's going to turn around from the slightest of movements, which means you'll be fixing your position that entire time. That is a healthy way, because now you're actively using your muscles, you're actively fixing your sitting position, you're actively working on actually making sure that, well, you don't break your bones or you don't get back issues. Because the most common problem you see nowadays, and especially the office, where people sit for many, many hours upon a time behind a computer, which is kind of the same in esports, without moving. It's not healthy, but that is the current way. So when you're looking at players like this isn't wrong in a way. It's just, this is, like, for example, you have articles like this, which is completely brain dead, which makes absolutely no sense on why the hell they're even bothering. Like, if you want to lose brain cells, you would read articles like this to be like, well, this person is sitting a bit in front, no, this person is sitting in the back. No, this is not how it is. These are people who have been practicing for all of their technique for such a long time. These are the habits they've developed, and there is no fix for it. What you see in, like, more commonly known in like the current generation of CSGO players, they also kind of try to do it with Battlefields and Overwatch players. They force you to work out, which is really the only fix that there is. working out the muscles that you have in order to like maintain those muscles without getting back issues, without getting neck issues, without getting shoulder issues, because that's the only way. Like there is no solution, there is no quick fix for this because of chairs. That's the first thing. So yeah, usually when I start coaching, I do tell you to try to do this, but that's mostly so that you keep in mind, so that every once in a while you will like try to sit up, hopefully, and then slowly and surely you will either go into this position or you will go into this position. Doesn't really matter. You will go into your comfortable position, something that's comfortable to you and you alone. And if it works, it works. That's kind of what it comes down to. Like, this is a scene, doesn't matter which FPS game, it's a scene where you just want to succeed. Well, again, like, what the fuck are they even trying to apply here? Like, okay, yeah, she's having a very loose position on her elbow. It's not good, no, but who gives a shit? It works. Losing brain cells 101. I lost a lot of them reading up on this shit. And there's a lot of, like this, for example. Can you tell me one person that is gonna willingly handicap their ability to move on the fucking vertical line? Willingly. Because this is a handicap. Nobody's gonna do this. Like, you're trying to go down and you can't because there's something in the way. It's a fucking towel. Why would you do this? It's stupid. So posture, all of these things. It's the same with claw grip, fingertip and palm. Like, yeah, what works better? It really depends on what's comfortable for you. Like, for example, I'm a claw gripper and it works very comfortable for me because I have very smooth movement, and the moment I require to turn around, that's when my arm comes into play and I can move very heavily, right? I don't know specifically which ones you guys use, but it really doesn't matter. Like, if it works, it works. That's what it comes down to. Everyone has their own preference, and until there is an actual solution to the way we human beings sit behind a computer, it doesn't matter. Like, you're gonna have people doing this. You're gonna have people maybe try out this, which is being used in the workplace, and you're gonna have people that just play like this, willingly handicapping themselves with a, like, this is already like a respiration, radiation movement of the wrist, where they kind of like, this is already pressure, right? Like, you're already pressuring a certain area here, which can lead to problems. So in a general sense, what you do want is that you are at least like seated. If you're like seated like this, and this is you, like the idiot you are, and you at least want to make sure that your arm is just natural. Like in physiotherapy, you have words for this, like it's close back position and maximum back position, where it's basically you have your body in a position that is either in the maximum position that your muscles can be, which is a warning, like, so that's a red flag. If you're actively in that position, which this person is doing, eventually there's going to be problems. Not at a young age, obviously, but like, let's say you're around 30 and suddenly you start getting a lot of problems. That's all because of this. Same with chair. Like, I'm already expecting myself to get some sort of issues in the coming years. It's just the way it is. Like, I grew up with a very large monitor, so uncomfortable positions were common for me. And you're not going to fix them like this position. Like, you're just making do with what you got, right? Like, this is literally, like, his mouse mat is bigger than the fucking space he's got. So that means, like, you can already see the way he's aiming. He's already on the edge. Which, if you ever tried, that's not what you want. You want to be in the middle of the mouse pad, which already means that what he's used to is already not applicable to what he's currently in. That does mean he's going to aim worse. That's just a fact, because he's going to try to make like a movement that he can't complete due to the fact that there's no space. Because everything you're learning about your body with like these movements and these ligaments, with these movements, when you're like building the muscle memory on the movement of your arm, like, for example, no, it doesn't really matter. Like, these are all the muscles. Like, the movements that you're using in order to move your elbow around, like to make these smooth strafing positions or these flicks, which is mostly the wrists. None of it actually in the end matters. You're just trying to get to a place that is unhealthy. And this is for every sport. Like, if you go way back to the beginnings of football, for example, I'm not going to show you videos of it, but there was people that literally would injure themselves to such a degree that that's not safe for life. I'm sure you've heard of that tag. That's not something you want to see. But that is like the evolution of a sport. And currently, esport is a digital sport. The people that are currently laughing at us are the people that are doing racing esports. because they get their racing seats, and those are actually extremely good for you. Like if you've ever seen like a racing seat esport, like the way you're sitting, it's just very comfortable position for you to be in. Like you're completely sit down, and if you get this custom made, which is what a lot of pro players do in this scene, because for example this is not that good, but you do want to like have it in around this position, it's gonna be like completely fine for you. So these people, they're fine. These are the racers. They have the same position as like for example an F1 racer. Like these are very comfortable positions to be in. These people are like extremely pro. Like this is what the way they sit. They can sleep in this. That's how comfortable this seat is. Like it's that comfortable. But as people that use mostly keyboard and mouse, we're not in that position. So this could be like some sort of technology that they could maybe create. But if you were to really think about it, that's like years and years of evolution that will have to happen. And this is very expensive as well. Like, let's not make that mistake. This is, like, I have one of these as well. It's expensive. Like, I can afford it, but the FPS games are so accessible due to the fact of how cheap it is to get into it. Like, a mouse you can get both for $20. Well, computer, most likely your parents are paying for it. And then there's the desk. As a result, you will, well, fuck up your back. Let's just keep it at that. Like, you will ruin your back. There's just no denying it. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You can stretch. You can make yourself comfortable. You can do whatever you want, but it's not going to change the end result. Something is going to go wrong with your shoulders, with your back, like the hunchback position. Like, eventually, like, mostly what you see is an elderly, right? I don't know if you've ever watched the elderly. This is the way they end up, right? It's just their muscles can't deal with it anymore. Their bone degrades, their muscle tissue degrades, like everything just becomes worse. That's just age. We are gonna be in this stage if we don't properly, like, at least train, stretch, and all that at around the age of 35. Because 35, like, you can find research papers on this. Like, it's no big deal. This is like the age where bone degradation starts. Like, there is no two ways about it. It's just gonna happen. But then you see like people like Schwarzenegger, for example, people that are extremely fit. Even though it degrades much slower, and they are still capable of like keeping that position as comfortable as possible. Like, for example, I'm pretty sure Schwarzenegger is in the ideal position. Maybe with a bit of a sway back due to the fact when he was governor, he was sitting a lot. But that is a lot of training. And people in the FPS world aren't really training. Like, even if I were to tell one of you to start training, you probably do it very lazily, and it's not enough. Like, it's kind of the same with if I were to tell you to aim 2 times a week. You're only looking at stabilization. You won't improve. You won't fix your position. You will not do anything. Like, you would have to train for at least 4 times a week into the specific aid, like of making your shoulder, your neck, your lower back. Like, you would have to train all of those things. Would any one of you do it, except for Auntie, because I know he goes to the gym? Silence. I guess none of you want to actually deal with the consequences of training.
Nah, thank you, Jim.
A gym is nice, but if you look at the general public, not really, the general average scene of the pro players, all of them are kind of like, not like this anymore due to the fact it's old, but they are kind of like this. Like, for example, if you look at the CSGO pros, right? Sitting. Like, they're still very uncomfortable sitting. Like, there's people that literally have their face in their screen and everything, just to make sure that they are, like, in a perfect position. Like this, for example. If it works, it works. That's just what it comes down to, because in reality, what it comes down to is, due to his position of his arm, this is kind of already handicapping him a little bit. But if you practice enough, it doesn't really matter what position you're in. It's going to work. But the moment you start changing this position, for example, his aim will probably become 10 times worse. I don't know who this is, but Exonomic, never heard of him. Probably the sponsor. But that is just the reality of what it comes down to when you are a, well, pro gamer in this specific scene. Like I just showed you the racing scene. They don't care about us. They are very comfortable. Very, very comfortable. But in our scene, it's kind of the same with League of Legends, I assume. Well, let's not go this far. Like if you're like this, then God help you. But this is what orcs are trying to do, which is kind of like making you do it like this. Well, not really having the screen in your fucking face, but making sure that you're in a bit more comfortable position, right? But in the end, this is the biggest evil doer, and it's the chair. The chair is just not good. It doesn't really matter how you look at it. The chair is not good for your back. It's not good for your sitting position. It goes back way, like more than 1,000 years, I believe, when the chair was first invented. It's comfortable in the first 10 minutes, but after that it's not. And obviously we've evolved over the 1,000 years, but it doesn't change anything. Like you have these positions. That is just the main evildoer. So the same goes for this. Until there's like an actual solution to your desk, to your sitting position, to what you're actually capable of. Like it starts with childhood, right? Like so your parents would already have to be involved with you actually doing this. So for example, if we were to get children, eventually we would be able to teach our children in a much more proper way, where it's a higher chance they reach the pro scene much more efficiently. But it doesn't change anything. That is the sad reality. Like until there is an actual fix, like what I just showed you with the skippy ball, which is being used in office workers, which does, like it's already proven, it really helps due to the fact that it's active movements on your muscles, which makes your muscles just continuously be active, and you don't actually get like stiff muscles just because of that situation. You'll be fine. But that's for office workers. And if you were to apply that to an FPS gamer who needs to be like actively in a position where he can aim, it's not going to work due to the fact that like this is the area that is mostly being used when you're on a skippy ball, combined with most of the lower back. So the biggest issues, the evildoer over a sitting position, is already being fixed by actively including those muscles. But this is going to annoy you when you're trying to focus on your arm. Like this gets in the way. Like if you're continuously moving around with like look at the, no, just call it your ass, with your ass. Like if your ass is continuously moving around, this is gonna annoy you. Like you're not gonna be fully focused on your arm, right? Because it's active movements. Like you don't have like it could be an experiment. Like from what I know, like in the sports scene of physiotherapists in the Netherlands, at least, there's no interest in trying to figure out what to do in this specific scene. But there have to be a solution. Like everyone is just going on about, like from what I've seen in the American scene at least, like with the American people going like, you should just do this. I just explained to you why this just doesn't work. Because eventually you're just going to go into your comfortable position. It's just going to happen. Like you can't force someone to sit in this position for that long unless there's like you're like dealing with a military soldier. Because those people are trained to just stand in a single position for ages. Also very healthy, but is that what you want from a player that has to actively move his arm around? No. They need to be able to focus on what they're doing, so they need to be able to just have that comfortable position. Like everyone is different. Everyone has a different sitting position. Like for example, the best flicker in the world, I would say. Like the way Pine sits. If I can actually find a picture. Come on, Pine. Jeez. How hard can it be to find a picture of this guy sitting? Like Pine sits a bit backwards. Not like this. Like, I know that his mouse is a bit like this, but he sits a bit like leaned backwards, a bit more comfortable. It can. Oh, there we go. There we go. The way Pine sits is his back is a bit backwards, but the rest, like it's very like. If you were to draw it, it was something like this, right? Like his back is like this, and then it goes like this. Think that's good for him? Absolutely not. Let's stop him from like pretty much decimating everyone with his flicking? No. It's just health issues that will come later on. It's kind of like you have to make that trade-off. Because nobody has a good sitting position in the Overwatch League. Absolutely no one. Like Sabiopi, for example. mean, it's not bad. It's just it's not good either. That's kind of what it comes down to. Like you have two sides of the same coin. Like it doesn't really matter what you do. The problem's gonna maintain. Any questions about this? Is just about sitting. Just about sitting. Like we'll go into this in a bit later, like on how the arm works, but just about sitting.
If you keep using your backtrack as much as you can, would it still affect your aim though? Like with that, I don't know.
And that's the thing, right? Like you're practicing in the most comfortable position. Was like the moment you enter a practice range, for example, you are unconsciously already putting yourself in a position that is comfortable for you. And that's like the key thing. Like you are putting yourself in that comfortable position, likely unknowingly, just to make sure that you can focus on what you're doing. So for example, what you see in the CSGO scenes, they put that shit in their face for whatever fucking reason. But that allows them to focus more on the minor pixels that they see the moment someone peeks a corner, for example. Is it healthy for your eyes? No. Is it healthy for your neck? Nope. Does it work? Yep. Like they just choose, they willingly choose these positions, like this guy. This is not healthy. It just isn't. Is he going to keep this up? No, he's going to probably keep it up for another 5 years, I would say. He will slowly start feeling problems, but that's just the way it is, right?
Yeah, I would not do that.
But that is just the way it is in the pro scene. Like nothing will be fixed until, well, chairs will get fixed. That's kind of what it comes out to. Like the chairs are the most prominent evildoers, and there's no solution. There just isn't. So whenever you're like focusing on doing this, like the only thing you can do is go to the gym. That's the only thing. Except maybe for Chiz. Like Chiz, will you be willing to become a test subject?
Well,
You're very small, so maybe this doesn't apply to you. It could be interesting. Yeah, would you go to the gym, Chiz? Because I know you don't go outside, so.
Hey, you go to the gym at this day and age with this pandemic?
Hey, I go to the gym. Doesn't stop me.
Oh man.
It doesn't matter 20. Like, chairs are chairs. Like,
Like, what about that Logitech chair? That like insane new one, the Hyman Miller one.
yeah, that's what 20 just said. Doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. I don't know that.
Like this chair, right? This is mostly being used in the Overwatch scene. So what this one does is like it does kind of like put that effect of skip volume because of it's a bit active movement on these sitting position. Like the same for the back because it does kind of put some pressure like on the way you're sitting, but it doesn't change anything. And that's kind of like the problem. Like it's this could be like a first step right into the right direction. But will it fix the underlying problem? That's the real question.
Probably not.
Like this is like the best example because this is based on a real life game, right? Like not really a game, but because people actually die in F1. Not lately, but it happens. In F1, the way it's set up, like you have this position, you just take away the car, then you have this seat, and then they just apply this seat, and then you have this. You now have a very comfortable position for your specific player to just fully work on himself. That is what we need in the FPS scene as well. Something that is equal to this, where we are completely comfortable without actually injuring or like long-term injuring our muscles, our bone structure, where we can still do our job. So for example, if we were to be in this position, if we were to now add a keyboard and mouse to this, well, you can probably already guess the problem. Our elbows are going to be probably like this. And then this is the mouse and this is the keyboard. Doesn't work, right? It's a very uncomfortable position because this chair specifically is made for your arms to be like this. So your arm go like this, so this is your elbow. Then your forearm goes like this, and your hand is on here. This is comfortable because it's right next to your body. It's a very comfortable position for your elbow to be in. It's slightly moved up, which isn't really a problem because there is a support in your back, which then further like fixes the problem of like having to actively activate these muscles because they're relaxed and comfortable. And then the forearm is just like the 90-degree. It's very like, even if you're an FPS game, you already realize that 90-degree angles is very comfortable for your arm to be in. It's also the very loose back position of your elbow in the first place. So you're not really pressure anything here, and then, well, the hand is the hand. Like, it's directly, like, it doesn't curve anywhere, like what you see in like in what this guy is doing. Like, he has his elbow like this, but his wrist is also slightly in this direction, even though he's in a comfortable position, not really aiming right now. So problems all around. Like, this is the most recent 2018, and obviously with Overwatch as well. It's like, if you watch this guy aim, right, like, just to have a look, just to have like an example. This was 2018. Rafa's pro player. Like, you can already tell he has claw grip. He has very low sensitivity, so he's very high sensitivity, I mean. So he can move around very fast. Right here, he is currently aiming directly, and if you look at the screen, he should still have to move to these directions, right? Like, he still has to be able to flick in certain directions, but his elbow, his wrist is already locked up. But this is already a locked position for your wrist to be in. Like, he could maybe push it a little bit further, but that's it. Sure, his high sensitivity could fix that problem, but it won't. And well, obviously there's also this, like, most people try to put some sort of cushion into their lower back, but that already means there's a problem. But yeah, back to this. This could be a movement. Will it fix it? I don't know. I can tell you. Like, I know what this chair does. I know like how it's being experimented also on the work floor, but it doesn't fix the underlying issue. That's just the sad reality. And that's what we need. Fixing the underlying issue. So.
One day.
Well, not in our generation, at least. Like, the best we could do is, like, for example, if people like of my age were to take this research into the next level. I don't know which field specifically this would be. Like, this is not my field. Like, I did physiotherapy and a minor in psychology.
Perhaps
But
ergonomics? I don't know what kind of study for that.
Like, the problem is it's lower back, and then the combination of like the shoulder and elbow, and then also the neck. Like, it's too many things. Like, when you're looking at a specialist, what they do is they specialize in a certain part of the human body. Like, for example, if you like, this is not only me, but also like surgeons, and like this is being used by a lot of medical professionals. It's also premium, so you don't have access to this, but you have to specialize in a certain region, right? Like, for example, if you're a general practitioner, you can't do research on this because you're not a specialist. You can only put your individual like explanation on it. So when you're doing, for example, a PhD as a general practitioner, and you're probably the sidekick of someone actually specialized in that specific field. That's something you see a lot on like medical documents. Like, for example, with this, like, there are multiple people. Like, I'm not going to bother on who they actually are, but mostly what you will see is, like, there's a specialist, and then there's like some people that have actual like knowledge on the surroundings of that specialized area, and that's where you build up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's difficult to say, because it's too many parts of the human body, and all comes down to one thing, and that's this thing. This is the evildoer. This is like the key problem. So yeah, hard to say. Like, it's absolutely possible because it was done with F1. Like, F1 used to be you sitting next to me, like, if you look at F1, like the 60s seat. Does this look comfortable to you?
No.
It's extremely uncomfortable. Like, there are people that came before you to make sure that eventually you will be in a position where you're comfortable. Like, you eventually like they create a bit more like this, and then they slowly start like, this is still actually bad for your back, but eventually you reach a level where it's very comfortable for you to sit in a certain position. Millions of euros of research go into this specific subject to make sure that eventually the end result is what you see with like this Lewis Hamilton, with how he sits. Like many generations came before him to make sure that eventually the research came to such a degree, like not only, like this is like the key part, right? Not only were they able to sit better, they're also able to perform better. And the reason for that is very simple. Because of how comfortable they are in that sitting position, they can fully focus on what actually has to be done. And this is something I also explained with aiming, right? Like you're fully focused on a specific thing with your aim. And you build up for that muscle memory. But in the end, you still have to focus on like your arm positioning and all that because, well, it's not comfortable. So you build up a specific style. And that's when you see like players like this. The problem is, he's exaggerating obviously. Problem like this with this is that if he were to slightly change his position, boom, gone. Like his entire aim would go out of the field and he would suddenly become from a pro player to a bronze player. That's completely possible, just because of how you change your sitting position.
What the fuck?
And that is the key issue. Like you have built up your muscle memory in such a way that at the moment you slightly change, not very slightly, but the moment you try to change it, you fuck up your entire muscle memory. Because your muscle memory has learned that in this specific position, with your arm like this, it will now completely focus on this movement. Like this is completely stuck, right? Like this is almost stiff, you could say. The only active movement that's going on are the forearms and the wrists and the hand. That is the only thing that is being used in this specific situation to help you aim. Everything else needs to shut up and just focus on the task at hand. But is this healthy? No, it's not. Like just from this picture alone, I can already tell this, not healthy. This, not healthy. Why? Because his arm is slightly up, he's hunched forwards, his neck is extremely stiff, he's going to have a lot of shoulder issues later on. And lower back as well, because of how he's hunched forward. If he trains, well, he can at least undo some of the damage, but the underlying issue is still there. What's this? This is a link. Oh, you showed me the picture. Oh, the chairs. Yeah, I already looked it up. So yeah, the problem with this is just that if you're in this position, the moment you do, for example, if you buy a new chair, you will probably already feel that you have to get used to that new chair. Do you want that? No, not really. Like example, like your chair breaks down, you need to buy a new chair, and you now need 2 more weeks to get used to that new chair in order to aim back to your normal level. Who would want that? But that's just the way it currently is. Like currently, we have put ourselves in a position of this specific thing. Like chairs have been a problem for thousands of years, right? And especially this movement, and also like the office workers have like made it so that because of all the back issues going on, and because the back issues decreasing worker efficiency on the work floor, they start looking for solutions. And that skippy ball is something I just showed you. That is, it's not really proven yet, but it's being tested and everything on the work floor, and it has shown the results that are desired due to the fact that it's active movement. But applying that to FPS is not possible right now. So for chair-wise, we're stuck. That is just the sad reality we're in. Anything else about just that? Chairs, chairs and chairs. I think I made it pretty clear. Like, I'm using F1 as an example just because of how well they've developed technology to put it into that position, and what we have to think about with aim. It's just that we need a keyboard and a mouse. Well, we don't necessarily need a big one. Like a small keyboard like this. This could already be enough, right? The problem is mouse mat. Like some people need a really big mouse mat because of how low their sensitivity is, for example. So that is like still the challenge. Like you could have like a small keyboard like this, which is easy disposable, could put it very easily, and these are all the buttons you need. So that's problem solved. On top of that, most keyboards do have like this extra added, which is very comfortable for your arm. What I just showed you, like with this. But this is not possible for your aiming arm, right? Because of how you need to move your mouse. Like you can't do this. It's inefficient, not possible. Sad life, but reality. Oh. And obviously you start young. Like this is already, it's the same problem. You're slightly moving, your wrist already forward, he's already sitting like this, sitting hunched over, like all these people are gonna have problems. Obviously I could go into the full detail, like there's carpal tunnel, like the problems, this is a forearm, wrist and hand alone, right? Like as far as my knowledge goes, like I could talk a little bit about the neck and such, but most of my knowledge is in the arms. So you can have like carpal tunnels, which is the most common like problem, like carpal instability or like fractures that can also like cause anatomical problems. There's no real solution for this. Like the moment you find neural issues, you're basically done. Like that will require some serious surgery, and it's basically the end of your career, so to say, because now that you need to do this, it means you need to go back to a normal position, and you would have to relearn everything, basically, just like what I explained to you, right? Like new chair, 2 weeks to suddenly get used to that new chair again. Now imagine if your wrist has been fixed. That is a removal of your muscle memory. Good luck starting over. I already went over this 20, like standing. Standing is just the way it is, like nobody can keep this up. That's what comes out to, nobody can keep it up. Like even soldiers, the only reason soldiers are able to maintain it so long is because of how ridiculous much soldiers are trained, right? Like they go through drills and everything, so they're very comfortable. They can stand for, like, not even this, like they have their arms down as well, so that does help a little bit. But the moment you do this and you want to move, like this is the center of movement, right? Like it's here in the elbow, you would have to now move this around in this position. It's not going to happen. So, sitting position, chairs and everything. Yeah, it's a problem. If I were to like, because the only reason I'm doing this is about FPS, like FPS and aim is like the core topic of this conversation. There is no solution, and the only thing you can say about chairs and sitting positions is just do what's comfortable. That is literally the only thing you can do. Like if you have a goal, you want to go pro, just do what's comfortable. And go to the gym if you are self-disciplined enough or not a lazy cunt. Because this is the end result, right? Like you will have a hunchback, period. Except for maybe if you're short, like that's kind of like what I wonder with Chiz. Like, Chiz, do you actually have like back issues already? Like you're a few years younger than me, so you don't know.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Like my back doesn't hurt or anything. Like it's perfectly fine. I don't even feel it.
I mean, at your age, you would already start feeling things. Like for example, what I feel is I had a very, like the way I sit, like for example, I had a very tendent, ever since I was young, I would put one knee above the other, so I would have my feet over this, and I would have like that 90-degree position. It was very comfortable for me. That's what I would sit in every single day. So I would have like, if I were to sit down, I would have like one leg like this, and the other leg would like go like this, right? As a result, what I have now, like a few years ago, I went to a sports doctor because I started having problems with running. Like if I went to go for a run, this lower back issue, like on the right side of my lower back, I would continuously feel pain, and that grew and grew and grew and grew. So eventually, I had no choice but to find a doctor, and then basically years of damage have been done on that specific part due to the fact of how I was always sitting. I was always sitting behind the computer because I built my entire career behind the computer, sitting like behind the computer for 12 hours a day. And yeah, well, it's comfortable at the time, but after 10 years doing that, yeah, you're gonna have problems. And that's just acceptance. It's all you can do. Like there's no fix. Like your body has been in that position for so long. There's nothing you can do. Anyway, so that's sitting. Just sitting and sitting alone. But let's see. I'll show you this. It's just uncomfortable arm positions, right? So the other topic was aiming. Just plain aiming down what your wrist is actually doing, what your arm is actually doing. So the movement that you're doing, like for example, if you've seen the video that I posted on Monday, I believe, I slightly go over how you should always tense this area, right? The reason I do that is because of how muscle memory needs to be built, and the easiest way to build up muscle memory in this specific situation is to make sure that the muscles that you're actually activating are already tensed, so that the moment you enter a game, for example, you can now relax those arms and they already know what to do. And eventually, with consistent practice and consistent practice over time, you'll reach a stage where you don't really need to tense your arm anymore because you've reached the expert stage, for example. Like what I see from most pro players, because if you're actually tensing those muscles, you would actually see it, even for those fucking stick figures you see on stage. You will still see the muscles slightly tense, but they don't. Like for example, this player there, like he's a very comfortable sitting position, and his aim is just taking care of the rest. That's just the way it is. Like if you practice long enough, your aim will be in a comfortable position where you don't need to tense anything anymore, and you'll be fine. But to start out, you do need to do this. You need to tense your arm, not your wrist. That's the other part I spoke about. You will never want to like tense this area. Just to slightly go over the hand muscles. Like the hand movements, they're not relevant for this. Like for example, if you were to practice an instrument, then this will be relevant because you would actually use these movements, right? Like what your fingers can do, what your hand can do. Like you can squeeze your hands, you can like move the fingers around, you can like widen them. All of those muscles are in your hand, except for like the big ones, which are the flexors and extensors. So for example, this one. But you're not going to tense these muscles. Like usually what happens when I tell you to tense the muscles, you will be tensing the upper ones. So the movements that they're doing are flexion, adduction, jargon. Basically what they do is like they flex the muscles, or you can like turn it around like to right to left on a 45-degree angle, for example. That is what these muscles are responsible for, right? Like, but these other muscles, for example, you would not use them. Like this is the big one I was talking about. This is not something you would use. And if you do feel like you have pressure in your hand, that likely means that you're either activating one of the big ones, which is this one, or you're activating one of the small ones, which could be this one, for example. And you don't want that. You don't want to ever put pressure on these muscles because you're not going to use them. It's just going to make your hand feel worse. So just as a general rule of thumb, because I don't want to make this too technical because your brain will overload. As a rule of thumb, you just want to make sure that the Dutch, English words, basically the most prominent ones, like the bigger ones, that are actually responsible for the movements that you're doing. It's like, for example, your elbow movement from, like if your elbow is like this, and this is the movements that you want to do, right? Like just moving around this area. That is what your elbow is mostly responsible for. That is what most of these muscles are responsible for. Like these muscles that you see here, they're responsible for helping that movement. Not this one. This one. Not this one specifically, but like this is responsible for your flicking, in case you're wondering. Small detail. If you're flicking, this is a flick to your right side. So for example, this is your thumb. So this is the other side. This is what the muscle that you're training with, flicking specifically on the wrist area. These are very minor flicks. If you do hard flicks on this, you will ruin the muscle because there's no space. Because as you can see, this muscle, it looks big. It's not. I mean, if you were to really flick this thing, well, I can already tell you what's going to happen. You're going to break your bones. So even though they are responsible for the minor movements, that's all they can do. They can help you do minor movements. But that does mean you need to tense these muscles so that they are awake, so that they can actually be activated. Any questions about just muscles in general? Because I don't want to make this too technical, because, well, I went to university for this.
I find it very difficult to actually tense those muscles a lot of the times without tensing something else. Like the forearm muscles. Like I find it difficult to tense those without making anything else tense.
So, okay, Oscar. I don't know. Maybe get more blood pumping. I don't know. Anyway, when you're tensing this, the pressure you should feel, just as a rule of thumb, you should feel around this area. Like this is something you should feel. You should feel it around here, and maybe a tiny bit minor movement here. Just a tiny bit, because when I do it, for example, if I were to do it now, I have complete freedom of my wrist, right? Like this is just my wrist, nothing else. My wrist is very comfortable, but I have my forearm tensed.
Okay.
So I don't know what seating position you have. Like it could be the seating position, for example. If you're sitting like this, for example, good luck. This, for example. If you're in this position, yeah, you will probably struggle because of how your arm is already in this position, right? Like it's already trying to keep your elbow up. And if you're already trying to keep your elbow up more, there's going to be more muscles activated, but this should still be comfortable because your muscle, the muscles on your wrists should already be on the desk, right? And if there's already on the desk, it means they're already quite comfortable. So there should be no need for any muscle to be activated specifically in your hand or on your wrists. They should be comfortable. There shouldn't be any problem in this position.
Okay.
But it is possible that if you're in this position that you would like feel like some triceps activating. That is like the back side of your muscle, or your biceps, which is the front. So bicep front, tricep backside. Or you could like feel maybe some muscles here trying to keep your arm up, right? Same could be for like this guy. Like this guy has his arm too far backwards, and that will result in this muscle being more active to make sure that it stays in this position. And then because of how his arm is positioned, like his wrists is now also being kind of forced. Like you're forcing these muscles to be activated. But what I'm saying is you have to willingly activate the muscles. So when I tell you to willingly activate these muscles, that is a conscious thing, is a conscious action of your brain activating these muscles, and any other pressure you feel could come from unconscious activation.
Yeah, I'm feeling like the ones there on the wrist are like unconscious activation.
Then you have to willingly think about that. Make sure that like stretching obviously is a part of what I've already mentioned, stretching with you multiple times. But what you could do is like wrapper your hand like around, so to make sure that your wrist is fully comfortable, fully relaxed, and then try again and make sure that you're only activating your forearm. Because when you're actually doing this, like what I'm doing is just my forearm is completely tense, but my wrist is so comfortable that I can make any movement. It doesn't really matter what movement I want to make because it's comfortable, it's relaxed. So if you're struggling with that specific position, there could be an underlying issue there. It's not really that important, but there's also bones and ligaments, but ligaments are really important for your movement. But yeah, muscles. Nothing on that besides that question? No, yes, maybe?
Not for me.
Okay. So yeah, muscles. Then what you specifically mentioned in his question, just to make sure if your question right here, like hand movement and grip. The other things is just what I discussed, because before you can talk about the small things, you have to talk about the big things, in my opinion. The big things are obviously the chair, which is an unfixable problem, relying on your entire upper body to get fucked over. So that was the first part assembly over. Then it's obviously the shoulder itself and your sitting positions and like small details like how players sit. Like this is very unhealthy, but I made my point because of how the elbow was mentioned. Now we can talk about the actual thing you mentioned, which was hand movement and then grip. Righteous? This can go. So, grip styles. This kind of comes like if you've watched YouTube videos, like I've watched a few YouTube videos about what I just spoke about, which are all a bunch of nonsense, but that's just people that are uneducated trying to figure out how the human body works. Just a sad reality. But usually when they talk about this, they're not entirely wrong. Like, for example, this video. What he basically goes over, he tries out every single thing. Well, if you now apply this to what I just told you about sitting position, right? If you're now going to change your hand position, aim is instantly worse. Period. Why? Muscle memory. That is already the first step that I can tell you. Like, that is already the first thing. Like, if you practice yourself in a certain way, if you now change the grips, boom, done. Retry all over. Like, you now have to relearn everything. Not necessarily because most of your muscles still remember the sort of movements, but because of how different these grips are. So, claw, which is you have your palm still attached to your mouse, but your fingers are like in this position, right? What this allows is actually a very comfortable position for your hand to be in, because you're now fully controlling every single position of the mouse, right? Like, I'm currently in a crawl position, and I can make very precise movements. So if you were to apply this to, like, for example, what I spoke about last week, about the certain styles that you have assault, you have close quarter combats like submachine, you have snipers. You could potentially look at applying these specific things to that certain aiming style, but it's hard to fully talk about it without research. Like, these are just speculations. Like the way you hold that specific mouse, it's all speculation. Like, in the end, I would still go for whatever's comfortable to you. But if you were to talk about it specifically, these three things, this is, if you were to apply it to a certain technique, it's best for close quarter combats because of how smooth your aim is. Like, you have a full control of your mouse, you're fully being able to predict and just small things. Whereas fingertip like, I'm not going to say this because there's no scientific evidence for any of this to be properly applied. Like, maybe in the future there will be, and then, for example, these two will be obsolete, for example, which is for a rule of thumb. Fingertips is very good for overall aiming, like for assault class. Like, if you're a specific fingertip, what will happen is you would be very mobile and being able to switch between your long to mid range and close range positions. Yeah, Oscar, I do agree with that. This is potentially better, but what these two can't do is like a palm grip, for example. Palm is the best position to be in when you're fully focused on flicking. And the reason for that is very simple. You have full control of your mouse, everything is covered, and you can just make these small movements, right? Like flick, flick, flick. The reason for that is what I just showed you with this muscle. This muscle is one of the muscles responsible for flicking when you're aiming down to the right side. So, for example, if your hand is on your mouse, if you want to flick to your right, this is one of the muscles that would activate. And this would complete the flick. It's not just a muscle, there's multiple muscles that do it, but this is just one of them. And just the best example because of how it looks. Just a small thing. That is kind of like how you can approach the type of styles with how you're aiming. And nobody has this knowledge. Like, for physiotherapists to become active in the esports scene, they are active actually. Like, if you were to look at, for example, Overwatch teams, but they're active by making sure that you're fit. They're not active in this specific field, like where they're trying to research better positions for what's healthy for you. Because physiotherapists are the ones that are responsible for making sure that you don't fuck up your muscles. So it kind of goes in many directions. Like, you can apply all of these specific grips to a certain play style, but in the end, whatever's comfortable for you works. Like, none of these specific styles are wrong. It's just that the muscles that you're using for each specific grip is different. And because of that, each specific muscle that is being active, like, for example, palm activates more upper muscles. Like, for example, when you're mainly aiming, most of your arm is just being used, like most of the muscles being used are very big ones. Whereas if your fingertip, these are mostly small muscles. These are very much the muscles that are responsible for your fingers, where they are just moving around. Like, you're mostly, with fingertip, you're mostly using your pinky and your thumb. And the thumb alone, for example, already has several muscles by themselves. Like, don't know if I can show them here. Yep.
Would it be recommended to have a higher sense than by using fingertip?
It really depends. Like, for example, this player, he has a claw grip, He's playing higher sense, and it kind of depends on the player himself. Like sensitivity is not something that you can apply to a certain person. Everyone has their own specific comfortable position on sensitivity, right? Like there is no right answer for that.
Okay.
There's no right or wrong. Like everyone has their own specific. Like for example, in my lazy aim, I have very low sensitivity, but in my competitive aim, what I've been trying to build up again, it's not fast, but it's somewhere in between. And I have claw grip, so it really depends on the specific player. Because, for example, when I switch to sniping, this is something I do unconsciously. This is something that I only noticed after years of gaming. Like obviously I started Call of Duty and I just moved up. When I snipe, I do this unconsciously. I switch to palm grip. I don't know why. I just do.
Whoa. Okay.
I have no explanation for it. That's just something that I started doing. Yeah, Oscar, you're right. Like the internet issue is the same with what I spoke about at the start. Like you weren't here at the start, but with the chairs and such, they just ruin people's lives willingly. Like you go into esports with a very healthy mindset, like I want to become pro, and then the bad habits come. Like you ruin your back, you ruin your neck, you ruin your shoulders just because of the chair, and then you can ruin all kinds of other things. The worst part could be for some people that have certain aim styles. Like you would have to do research on it before, for example, this aim style specifically, you could actually cause nerve damage because of how much pressure you're putting on your neck. That can also lead to some seriously terrifying diseases. Not really diseases, but there's basically tissue in between your neck bones, and if you put too much pressure on that, that tissue will open up. And if that tissue opens up, it starts pressing against nerves. Let me just... Yeah. If you have that tissue pressing against your nerves, you're basically done for. That's gonna cause serious issues. Like, you can become paralyzed from the neck down. No joke.
Okay.
But that is extreme cases, and that's only... it's something that you see with construction workers, because they actually work with very heavy material. Anything you can do to prevent it? The first thing is, it's also genetic. Like it's already been proven that people with weaker constitutions, like for example, if the parents have had such kind of problems, it's also genetic, just like with dementia, for example. But for the rest... I mean, as long as you go to the gym, you're fine. Like I know for a fact that you go to the gym, Oscar, so you're fine. But generally speaking, if you don't work out and you continuously put pressure on a certain part of your neck or a certain part of your body, it's gonna cause problems. Like what I just said with construction workers, the most commonly thing is the lower back. I shouldn't probably have to tell you this, but what most construction workers do is like if you have ever done a deadlift, you can probably already figure out that construction workers don't do the position that you should be doing when you do a deadlift, but they're still going to pick up that heavy material. Result, a lot of damage to your lower body, especially your lower back. And that results into like all sorts of problems in that area. Yeah. So it's not really relevant for FPS gamers so far, because I've never heard of a case like that. But it does happen in construction due to the heavyweights. What you see in FPS gamers, this is definitely going to happen to my generation and the current generation coming because of esports really blowing up in my generation. I expect a lot of neck problems, a lot of arm problems, a lot of shuttle problems, lower back problems. Like it's just going to happen, especially with players like that started here. This is like 2005, 2006, I would say, because of how big that monitor is. By the time of 2010, by 2009, 2010, flat monitors were already very common. But for players like this, they're fucked. Like these big ass keyboards that are not comfortable at all, with all those wavy ass. I never understood why they did this. Like having these wavy buttons, and a mouse that is just a fucking brick. Like that is something that also been evolved, like how a mouse is, like with all those rubber mouse movements and such. But there's no solution. Just to get back on. I don't think I have my diseases in here. I would have to open up my medical book. Clinical tape, blah blah blah. Yeah. Surgeries. Yeah, I would have to open up my medical book. I don't have that open right now. But there's always going to be problems, just because of you have a desire and you go for that desire, and in esports, we just don't take care of ourselves. Besides the people that actually work out. Let's see what does this say. Fingertip, greatest control. Yeah, that's true. Like with fingertip, you just have so much control over your mouse. But the problem is with fingertip is the delay. Like for example, if you now, like all of you now, put your mouse in a fingertip position, if you were to now shoot, your finger is in this position, right? Who do you think is faster? The person that is in the palm grip having his finger like this, or you like this?
Probably the claw guy.
Yeah, but fingertip, this is not fingertip by the way. Fingertip is very much claw. Like, I don't even know why it's portrayed like this. People that have
I
finger.
use fingertip, but my finger isn't exactly like a claw. Like my finger
This is
a
fingertip.
little bit,
This is
yeah,
fingertip.
I don't use it like that. I don't
Yeah.
use it like that at all.
I was just wondering, like, this is not fingertip. This is fingertip. This is palm, this is claw.
Okay.
It's general sense on the internet.
I'm neither of those.
Like, that's the biggest problem, Oscar, on the internet, that there's so much misinformation. Like, when I looked up the initial things of what I wanted to discuss when Chiz posted this discussion, I looked at a bunch of YouTube videos, and obviously these are just uneducated people making guesses. And that's also where I came, like, with all these positions, like, just by Googling this, right? Just by Googling this. You have people making articles like this where they draw why they're doing like this. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? They make an entire article based on what these people are doing. And it's like, what is wrong with you? This is so fucking retarded. Like, there's no logical explanation for this. This person actually did this. Like, what are you doing? I want my brain cells back. I lost brain cells reading this. But that is just, it's not just journalism, it's also on, like, on YouTube. On YouTube, you could also, like, find these type of articles where they're like, yeah, you should do this, yeah, you should do that. Like, for example, if I just go to YouTube, just to find something general, like aiming at this. The most commonly word you could find, like, okay, so this guy is pretty respectable. I'm gonna put in the sound. But he's gonna show this, right? And what is he showing us? He's gonna show us how to hold the mouse, and he's gonna make examples. What did he just skip? What important part did he just skip by just going straight to this? Come on, we just spoke about it for like a solid 30 minutes.
Like your elbow? Oh, the chair.
Like, it starts with the chair, then it goes to your arm position, and from there on you just build up. Like, he skipped the most important parts. This is the final step. Like, before I would start talking about your wrist and your arm, I would have to explain how your back is just completely fucked. You can't skip that step. You just can't. You have to explain to players, like, he's going over the elbow and such, but you have to explain. Like, this guy, for example, he's sitting on a fucking tiny ass chair. His back is probably fucked already. And that's the very first result. People telling you how you should move your arm. Now, if I were to follow his advice, right, and I would just fully focus on arm alone, I'm gonna ruin my neck. I'm gonna ruin my back, and I'm gonna be completely stuck in that single position where I practice. For example, let's say I practiced 1,000 hours into that specific position. If I were to now try to fix my position, like, for example, following what he did, I did this, for example, but I can't keep this up, so eventually I will do this unconsciously. Like, this is something you do unconsciously. your arm is now gonna be lazier, it's gonna be more in a stuck position. These positions are different. And now suddenly my aim is worse. And I would get frustrated, I would get angry. I'm like, what the fuck? I just practiced 1,000 hours in that aiming and I want to now sit properly. So I skipped a very important part. Now I want to go back to fixing that important part. And now I want to aim the same way. It's not going to happen. I have to now relearn aiming in that single position. So just from the very first result in just on YouTube, I'm not saying he's wrong or anything. Like, I did watch this video, and this guy specifically, he's a very educated person when it comes to this kind of thing. But well, he's no physiotherapist, and he's also no doctor. He doesn't fully know what he talks about. He's making educated guesses based on information that you can find. This information is all locked behind premium sites, premium things, behind books and everything. Like, for example, this site alone. It's like, what, 200 euros? You're not just going to randomly buy for this. You need to actually have a reason to buy this, and then you have to actually have a reason to use it. This person doesn't do that, obviously. Is it wrong? No. Like, he's still helping players aim better. And he's still helping players, like, figuring out what grips are best and what works best. And then I can obviously add my part to it, like what's better per style. Because I said, like, you have assault. So last week, and I said you have close water, combat, potato brain, and you have sniper, right? And you could actually fit, not actually, but you could technically, just to make it sure, like you can technically fit these playstyles into a certain position. Like if you were to fingertip your way through playing Tracer, for example, or just submachine gun in general, like for example in Call of Duty, where you're basically, for example, on a map like Rust in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, where everything is very close. Fingertip will fuck you up. You don't have the necessity of your arm being stable enough, because you need some form of stability, which then kind of puts you in between this, right? This will be most comfortable for you as a close quarter combat participant. And sniper, yeah, it's a bit different. Snipers, I would say, yeah, the bomb due to flicks. Snipers are very heavily reliant on flicks. Like, yeah, they need to aim like in a strafe, but flicks are like they're going to strength. And in order to practice flicks, what the fuck is this? If people use them all like this, they seriously need to question their life decisions. I've seen shit like this, even in my university. What the fuck is wrong with these people?
I don't even know what that is.
It's a mouse.
No, it's not. It's a cup.
It's a mouse.
Cup. It's not a mouse.
Like, yeah, it's very, like, I've seen it even in my university. Like, you have to understand, I went to med school, so even in my university, they use things like this. It's very, I can't.
It looks like a paperweight.
I just can't find a reason why this would be good.
Oh.
I just can't. Because you're fully forcing your arm to be upwards. Like, you can't relax your arm. What a cup. This is a cup.
Oh, no, that's a mug. Tea mug.
This is a teacup.
Yeah, the teacup. You know, that's not. When I think cup, I think like one of those.
Hey,
Which one?
it's from South Africa. It literally has the price of ZAR.
Huh. Weirdos. But yeah. So for claw grip in specific and all those type of styles, you could, technically speaking, you could put them into a certain style. But I believe that you would already find this position naturally. Like I said, right? Like if you're comfortable in a certain position, you would naturally follow that position. And if you look at like pro players, it doesn't matter in which FPS game, it's always the same. They're always in one of these fields. Like you have either this or you have this. So claw is like the ultimate in the middle type of playstyle, because it can do both. But whenever you see someone actually aim, like you see claw grips, you see all sorts of grips, and it works. Like people with some of the most insane aim, like Sebiobi or I don't really know other pros in other FPS games. Like Shroud has very good arm position. He also uses palm and claw as well. Summit, yeah, as well. You don't really see a lot of fingertip. And the reason for that is because you don't really need it in the FPS games in general sense. The people that use fingertip, I don't think you find any of them in the pro scene. Just because of how uncommon it would be to be in there. What FPS game would you recommend to play to get back into the genre? What I'm doing myself, I'm treating Overwatch like an expensive AAA practice simulator because the game itself is absolute dog shit. But it's very good for aiming in general. Battle Royales are the worst because there's no way to properly actively practice. Like team deathmatch is really something you would need, or deathmatch in general. Call of Duty is actually a very, very good game to play in. Like Black Ops 2 for 3 is already, I don't know. Those are also very good games to just work back on your aim. And then you could take that into a Battle Royale game. A Battle Royale in general is just, it's very hard to practice in. Yeah, consistency and fingertip. Yeah, but that is something you can practice, right? Like consistency is something you can practice. It just doesn't just vanish when you're working hard on a specific style. So when you're in this position, like the biggest flaw that fingertip has is the arm position. Like so the picture. Well, the picture where I saw the guy draw someone having a fucking towel under his wrist. That picture. That is kind of what you need to properly fingertip. Because in this style, for example, you have your arm up, right? Like your hand is up. It's very uncomfortable. And palm and claw is very much more dominating due to the fact that your arm is comfortable. Fingertip could have a future. But the first thing that would have to change is how tables and such work. Or seatings in general. Because you can't fingertip. You have your arm very much above the desk, whereas these two have their wrist on the desk. And that brings you back to what's comfortable. Well, I don't think fingertip is comfortable over long periods of time. Like you could do it, just not very wise. Yeah, carpal tunnel is another. There are so many carpal tunnel issues when it comes to certain positions of the hand. Like the very first thing you even learn in med school is carpal tunnel. Why? Because it always happens. There's always carpal tunnel here, there, and it's fucking everywhere. After that, you learn like arteries and like neural issues because, well, for what I just showed you, this is not good. Like for example, cerebral palsy. Diseases like that where you just Parkinson's, for example, you're just completely fucking up the nerve system in these positions, and it's just not healthy. Any questions about those 3 grip styles?
For me, no, because apparently I don't fall into any of them.
What do you do?
Well, I don't know. I would try and kind of draw it for you, but it's like it's sort of like claw and fingertip combined, except it's there by my pinky where my palm is touching the mouse, not the back of my palm.
You cut that out for a little bit. What do you mean with your pinky?
So like there by my pinky, that part of my palm on that side, on the right side, that's the part that's touching my mouse, and not the bottom part of my palm.
Different view.
So if you go back to like that razor part, that razor one that had the razor, yeah.
Yeah.
So like you see how a clawed has like that green part there at the bottom of the palm.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, for me, I have like that part that's touching isn't the bottom part there, but the right part by my pinky. Like that part of my palm by my pinky.
So you have your pinky here?
Touching. No. My pinky is touching the right side of the mouse.
Like
Yeah,
where
like this.
specifically?
Yeah,
There?
where you just put it.
Yeah, so you are very close to fingertip.
Yeah.
You're
I
in
still
between
have
this.
Yeah, I still have my palm kind of touching on the right-hand side of my palm. So I'm not leaving my mouse completely alone.
That could already explain why you have difficulty tensing your forearm muscles only. Like if I were to do this correctly, right? Like what I'm doing is I have my pinky here and my thumb here, somewhere around this. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
which is
then
exactly what I did.
this is where my then my paw, like where the claw would be, and then this is open, right? So this area is not touching. Is that what you're saying?
No, like I have a very small area, like on the joint there by my palm by my pinky, touching the surface of my mouse, and then literally just by my thumb as well, a little bit touching the mouse.
Okay. I would have to actually see it, but from what you're describing, you're putting your mouse in an uncomfortable position.
It feels great though.
Yeah, it feels great. If it feels comfortable, it feels comfortable. That's what I say, right? Like if it works, it works. It just means that my training, specifically like when I teach people to aim, I always say tense the forearm. And if you're feeling some struggle with only tensing your forearm, well, that wouldn't fully apply to you, I guess. Like it very much depends on like one of the other things that you learn when you're dealing with forearm muscles is that there's a certain percentage of population that just doesn't have a certain muscle in their arm, whilst the others don't. Let's see, in forearm for some people. I have this one, by the way. This is a muscle that some percentage of the world population just does not have. It's just a fact. Like, for example, this is mostly responsible for like clenching your arm a bit, but you are perfectly fine not having this muscle. Like, it doesn't do anything. That is very specific to what other things can do.
Okay.
Like if you were to try what this guy's doing, right? So slightly bend your arm and then do this position, you should see this. And if you don't, then you don't have this muscle. Just a weird fact. Like some part of the human population just doesn't have it. How accurate these numbers are, I don't know. This is Wikipedia, so Wikipedia gonna Wikipedia. Actual numbers I wouldn't know. Like I would have to like actually go into one of my research sites to find that, but it's not really relevant really. It's just a percentage. So let's see. So hand movement, grip, and other things. So you start with the seat, then you have your elbow, your arm, and all that, and eventually you have the grip styles. Does that answer what you said, Chiz? Like I said, right, like this is not necessarily wrong, like, especially how this guy is sitting. Like he's sitting full frontal, like WTF are you doing? But it's not wrong, because it works for him. And if it works, it works. That is what all of this kind of comes down to. Like if it works, it works. There's no correct answer, so to say. Until we fix this. Never understood why people did this. Yeah. Desk, problem 1, chair, problem 2, then the amount of space you have, like everything just builds up. And eventually, like once you're a pro, like Overwatch pros, because I just know what their desks look like, you have enough space for everything. Eventually. But yeah, getting there, completely different story. Like I forgot who it was. There was a Overwatch pro player that turned pro in like 2018, 19, during the summer. He went pro on a laptop that couldn't even do 30 FPS on Overwatch in a completely broken setup and everything. he may do what he did, but is it comfortable? No, but he made it. It's kind of thing. Like, this is like the most optimal you could ask for. It's kind of what Jay Jonak is doing. Like, you have this chair that kind of does it what it's like. It's not perfect, like the Hamlet chair, but somewhat helps. Well, this mouse needs to be more forward because mouse needs to be in the middle. But this is like the best you can ask for, right? Better than this, just like this guy, for example. He's completely like if you actually he's sitting like this, right? And what most people do to fix that is put a pillow in between here. Well, I have a chair where I can just move like a trigger and then it will just do that for me. So it's built in, but it's still not a perfect solution. Like at my desk I can stand up as well and I switch in between those things, but does it fix the underlying issue? No, it doesn't. I'm just avoiding a problem because there is no solution. And yeah, Bird Ring. Like he's like, okay, you give me this chair, but it's not comfortable. This is not what I'm used to. So he sits on the edge. Whip the function of this chair, so to say. Like there was an attempt to use the function of this chair, and it just doesn't work. And that's kind of the problem. Like if you start introducing new chairs that are trying to fix this problem, people that have already been in such a scene for so long, they can't adjust. They will aim worse if they ever to actually use the advantage of this chair. So there is no perfect answer, so to say that there just isn't. Like you can buy it for your children, sure, but most setups look like this. Like this is a horrible setup. Like it can look good for this idiot, but really this in this position, so small, no space whatsoever, and you can't really move around. Okay, like it looks good, but is it functional? This is functional. Doesn't look good, but it's functional. Right, so I would not assume you have any question about the muscles anyway. I just went over it to a general sense. You have some idea of what the muscles look like. It's not that important. And this is like, yeah. You won't do this. Like, you won't do this for a sustained amount of time. You just won't. Grips. Grips are grips. This is more about just like overall problems with joint training and all that, and identifying problems. And there's more problems that are in existence. If you were to want to test this out, well, you will need a professional, because you can do damage. But most common that you see in people with wrist issues, like wrist flexion, which like flexing the wrist and all that, mostly carpal tunnel. Like almost all the time, it's carpal tunnel. But I've not really seen that in FPS gamers, at least. I want to know about the other scenes. And well, you see the racing scene just laughing at all of us. They're like, bunch of idiots. Imagine having problems with your muscles.
Lucky.
Wrong scene. Wrong scene. That's all you can say. So no further questions. I'm gonna close my books. Nothing, nada, nopes. Right then.
Just a whole lot of science.
Yeah, it's the science of the human body. Imagine that. It kind of depends, right? Like if you're my age, it's already too late to start trying to fix my body posture. I'm an old man.
Sit on the couch then.
Yeah, but couches are also not good.
I don't know, man. Get in the beanbag then, something.
Okay, that's what you see console players do, right? They sit on the couch. So
They're actually selling gaming couches now too. Gaming sofas.
these sofas, they're not good at all. They're not meant for a long position. Gaming couch. The fuck is this?
Yeah.
You can sit on your gaming couch with your gaming controller
Ah, yes, I need a beer in between.
to do all your gaming.
Like here, first issue, boom, neck position. Neck position, neck position. Have fun having neck issues.
Just burn all the shares. I don't know. Just like fucking bog the beanbag.
These things are comfortable though. Like holy shit. Like I could just lay down this. Like this actually has the advantage, the same advantage what I showed with the. This could be like a FPS gamer's future.
But the elbows, the arm positions.
That is the second problem that I addressed, right? Like if you take the F1 seat.
But what's to stop them from positioning it diagonally? Like why can't they position like where you would rest your mouse pad diagonally so they would be in a 90-degree angle?
Gravity.
Yep. This is like just to have a quick explanation between why this works for an F1 seat or like a racing seat and it doesn't work for FPS. It's the hand position. Like if you were to now turn this hand in this position, yeah, you would activate more muscles and it will become more difficult to hold that position. Like this is a comfortable close open position that the arm really likes, and this is what they use to hold their steering wheel, right?
Yeah.
Like here, steering wheel. This is how you hold it. But you can't do this with this.
Yeah.
So to find a solution to this, it's like the next step. Like I have seen these things around. They also show this with FPS seats, but the problem remains is how would you position the keyboard and how would you position the mouse. And that's when I showed you that smaller keyboard. That is already a very good solution because a very small keyboard, you could potentially put that keyboard in this position, right? Like just have it slapped on the side, just like with a racing wheel. And you will be very comfortable in a position. That would only leave the problem with the mouse. Doing it with the mouse is not possible due to the fact you have something in your hand that has a weight to it that will continuously have to be moving into this axis, right? Which is not what you want at all. It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I get that.
Like, unless everyone becomes an extremely high sensitive player, then it's possible. But they just don't exist. Like people like, I think Jane did this one time. There was this one person that had like a 32,000 effective DPI.
I think so, yeah.
What?
If you're someone like that, then you could work with that because you are using microscopic movements, almost like millimeters, in order to move your mouse around.
Mm-hmm.
She was flat though, so it doesn't mean that you become a good player. But that is like the future does have some solutions because this is a comfortable position for you to be in. Like as long as your neck is a bit more backwards, like you do have to actually respect that. Like the neck position. That is the final. This is another good neck position. That is like the final step, and then you have the seat. The seat will be done. The only problem will then be the keyboard and the mouse. I don't know how to address that. Like I'm not a engineer. I went to med school, not engineering school. But the engineers would have to figure something out together with maybe medical professionals, and then you would enter maybe the next era of like gaming. Because esports is already proven to be, especially during this pandemic, to be a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yeah, extremely lucrative.
Yep,
But that is the limit. Like
swimming in cash, right? Yep. Those OD bucks.
Oh yeah.
that's kind of the limit. Like these things, they are very good. It's just like you even have people that do this. I don't know why you would turn your fucking thing around, but yeah, sure, why not?
Just like start spinning around while you're playing.
I actually do want one of those, but they are very difficult to put in your house. But yeah, it's very comfortable to sit in. And if I were to work on this, it would be very comfortable. But the problem is the keyboard and the mouse. One of the solutions could be this is actually quite interesting, is what those players that I showed you that had the keyboard on their lap. That could actually be a solution in this case. But then the mouse.
Mobile gaming on beanbags.
Oh yeah, man. We've gone the wrong way. Should just play mobile games.
Yeah. Because the solution was obvious, really.
The solution was there all along.
Yep.
Mistakes were made. Alright then that